Yeah, we got it apart. My next step, I need to get all of the gears off of the pinion shaft, and then that way I can get the pinion itself with no bearings, no gears, or anything on it to the machine shop so they can remove about a 1 millimeter of diameter, I think it is. So when you flip this over, this is quite a bit larger, about a 1 mil larger diameter here than what the older pinions use. I think this is a trashed one. No, actually that pinion looks all right. I think that was the ring gear that matched it was trashed. But you can see the bearing itself is definitely shorter. There's a possibility I might even have to have them shave off a little bit of depth here too, another millimeter or so. We'll see once I pull all the bearings off after getting all the gears off, and I'll do the same to this Mark IV pinion. Take some measurements, or I might even just hand both of them with no bearings on them straight to the machine shop and say, match the long one to what the short one is. Simple enough. So, while we're here, let's go ahead and start taking all of those gears off the pinion and get the bearings off, because that will be the first thing I'm going to want to do tomorrow, is go right to the machine shop with it and say, hey, can you machine this down and have it ready by the afternoon? Well, we'll see. I won't pressure them too much to get it done super quickly. But yeah, we're here. Let's get it done. So this is just going to be almost exactly like doing it on the 5-speeds. You're just dealing with a longer shaft. That's about it. But everything else, this part of the procedure is going to be exactly the same as doing it on a 5-speed. I may have to adjust where I have my press sitting to get this done, but beyond that, it's generally pretty straightforward part of the job here. Need a nice bearing splitter, and you can see how much I've used this. A bunch of gear teeth marks on it. You don't want to use this side of the bearing splitter. This is great for splitting bearings off, but you're going to load up the edges of the teeth of second gear trying to use that in this direction to pull that gear off, or to pull all these gears off. So we're actually going to take second, third, fourth, and the 3/4 selector off all together. And there's also going to be a sleeve here, another sleeve that press fits on for 4th gear, another sleeve for 3rd gear, and a washer between 2nd and 3rd gear to remove, as well as all of their needle bearings. They're all going to come off as one assembly, basically. Actually, I think what I can do here is just not use the long press piece that I normally do when I'm pressing these off. I just put the press arbor, or the press cylinder, straight on the top of the shaft and press it out that way. Now, I'll just be safe and put in my old flywheel bolt for the hell of it as well. So let's get set up here. And actually, what I should do is make sure 1st gear can actually go through my press arbor here, because 1st gear is a bit larger than I'm used to. Oh yeah, it fits through just no problem. This is a terrible old Harbor Freight press, but I had the fabrication shop next door make this slightly larger arbor for it, so I can do this job without having to pass through so easily back there. What's going on now? What I really don't like doing is using the pieces up here and then the that screw drive press piece, because often it's going to actually pull up on these, and then you're putting a little bit more pressure on the bottom side of the teeth in second gear. So that's why I had this set up the way it is, so I could press this in and out on the press rather than using that whole setup. So, boy, that first gear really is just barely fitting in the middle here. Just barely. You know, I could probably actually go up a little higher here too. Let's go up one more peg. Ratchet this so much. Ooh, just barely enough. Okay. Looks all right. Actually, it came off easier than I'm used to. I like it. Alright. Boy, that is just barely gonna skate through there. Okay. This is our second gear synchro. Let's take the rest of this gear stack here. Start laying out the back of the table this sequence of stuff. So we got a washer and this sleeve that actually rides on or inside this roller bearing in the back of the case. This is fourth gear output. There's its press fit sleeve that goes on the shaft and its needle bearing. Fourth gear synchro. Still looks in really excellent shape. The 3/4 selector. Also really excellent looking shape. Third gear synchro. Third gear itself. There's a washer that sits between second and third gear. Press out the sleeve here and its two bearings. So for some reason they started doing this with the 02Js. The 02As actually had a one-piece bearing for third, but then in the 02Js they went to this two-piece bearing only for third gear for some reason. And they kept to it. It's the same part. Get this washer. And then we got second gear's needle bearing. Now to get the 1-2 selector and first gear off, we're going to readjust the bearing splitter to go underneath the large pinion bearing plate here. And we also need to remove the snap ring that lives here. So I actually have a really awesome set of snap ring pliers. I just kind of looked on Amazon. This is a nice made in USA snap ring plier. And I just kind of looked at the various profiles and, you know, all the reviews and everything else. And this one looked like it would be one of the better bets. And sure enough, this is made taking the snap ring off way easier than any other snap ring plier I think I've ever used. So I'm super happy with it. There's our snap ring. Let's get rid of our bolt again. See how this lines up. Trying to reduce how much it's moving around in there, but I'm also trying to make sure that there's an outer bearing race that presses into that, and I'm trying to stay outside of it. So actually here, let me put this back for a moment. gonna have to readjust and press once more. Ouch. Okay. Make sure this is sitting evenly on there. There we go. There's our extra long pinion shaft. And this washer's a little bit different than what I'm used to seeing on the 5-speeds. So the 5-speeds normally do have this part that rides on the inner race of the big pinion bearing, and then it steps up to clear the cage on the pinion bearing. But they usually have a similar step on this side that the first gear needle bearing will ride in. This one does not have the step, so they must have revised the needle bearing in first gear. So here we go. And yeah, first gear looks a bit different too. They've kind of lightened it and made it a lot more hollow. At least on the back side, it's just more machined out than what they used to be on the earlier transmissions. So this is our first and second gear selector. Looks in really excellent shape. First gear synchro, which is a 3-piece. And there is actually a different revision of these. And they in the early in the O2As and the early 02Js, they have a 1-piece synchro, and it has fewer of these teeth on it, and they're larger teeth. And same for the gear itself. There's fewer but larger teeth, and then also again for the selector, fewer but larger teeth. And first gear synchro on the earlier 02Js and the 02As is a 1-piece. It's not 3-piece like this. And then second gear synchro was the 3-piece, and the hub on this is actually symmetrical. Like you could flip this hub either direction and it would work. You know, have the collar flipped over. Whereas if you get to one of the earlier 02A ones, I don't know if I have one laying around to show, but the one that faces first gear is actually a lot thicker casting. The one that faces second gear is a lot thinner to fit the 3-piece synchro with these tabs that face inwards. So just something to look out for if you're ever taking apart an early 02J or an 02A. If you completely disassembled this assembly, make sure you get the hub oriented the correct way before you reassemble it. And obviously there's a specific direction the collar has to be too. So the teeth are closest, for the reverse section of things, they're closest to second gear, because that slider gear is going to come up from underneath, and these angled teeth, beveled teeth, are there to help move either direction to make it easier to engage. What is interesting on this, normally I would see first and second gear synchros would be with the same friction material, but Volkswagen in this case, they gave first gear the kind of older style that has these channels. And I actually kind of like this design because I can very easily tell when these are worn. So these channels look like they're about the, they almost look like new basically. As these get well worn, you'll actually see all these channels will get much wider because they've worn down so much on both on this side, as well as on the inside of the outer ring on first gear. They don't sell this one anymore, interestingly. They superseded the part number to this one. Even for the later 02Js that use the 3-piece synchro, they have what looks like bed liner sprayed on them. And that's the only part number that you can buy anymore from Volkswagen is this synchro when you're buying them new. For up to, you know, starting with the 2000 or so 02Js that have this style synchro. And of course, since it is a different friction material, you know, you don't want to mix and match the inner and outer synchros. You want to make sure that if you have a synchro that has this more bed liner looking surface on it, that the inner synchro ring has the same as well. And likewise, if you have the one that's got channels, you keep that matched to the outer ring that has channels. So other than that, I'm going to go ahead and take off my bearings on the pinion shaft, take some measurements, call it a day, and see if I can get in with the machine shop to get this milled down on this end, so then I can actually get ready to go ahead and start assembling all of these pieces into a 02J. It will take a little bit longer than that too, because I am planning on, this is for me, this is the first build that I'm doing on this is for my own personal car, and I am going to be putting in a limited slip differential. So this original differential is going to go bye-bye. But it is good to know that you see, look on this side, these flats that sit right here, those flats would accept the Mark IV Speedo gear. I believe it would anyway. Actually, the machining looks a little bit different on this one than I'm used to. I might just pull this bearing off and just try the Mark IV Speedo gear just to see if it does fit. There are some differences in model years of differentials as well, but I'll get to that in the next video as I'm talking about separating the ring gear from this differential to put in a limited slip. So for right now, let's just get the bearings off of our pinion shaft, take some measurements, call it a night. Actually, before I do that, since I still have the pinion bearing plate sitting there, I'm going to remove the bearing race that's sitting in there, because I am just going to put on all new bearings no matter what anyway. This, I believe, if I recall, this is the inner race from a differential bearing on a 02J. And it just so happens to fit perfectly on the tiny bit of lip that sticks out from the large pinion bearing, and it just touches it there. So just need to find the cap that I normally have in my bunch of press tools that are hanging out here. Let's see. You know what I might do instead is I could just put this guy over the top of it and hammer it, and that'd be fine. Yeah, let's just do that. And I'll give myself some swing room. You're ready to catch it. Just like so. There's my tool. And there is the outer bearing race. Removed. So, no bearing left on the plate. Let's take this whole assembly, put it on here, extract the bearings from the pinion shaft. There we go. One bearing. Throw that out. Take it back to the table for a sec. Flip this over. Get the next bearing. All right. Throw that there. Let's just go back up with this again. Okay. I'll grab this guy. Hello. Well, I haven't had that happen in a long time. That's cool. I gotta find what the heck happened to my press piece. Oh, there it is. Well, here's illustration number one why wear safety glasses, or at least just normal glasses in my case. That was a bit more excitement than I was bargaining for. Usually those come right off without any real fight. But obviously, different bearing than what I'm used to dealing with. So, I don't actually have a torch here. I just have a heat gun. It might help a little bit, but yeah, I might even have to cut this one off. We'll see. That was pretty weak though. That was pretty weak. I might first just try to tighten this as well as I can on this lip that's left of the inner race here, and maybe I get lucky. Or it just breaks that too. Sometimes that happens. Always something. Okay, let's try this again. I should probably have used a wrench to tighten these or something, but screw it. We're going to try it like this for now, see what happens. Hey, success. Good stuff. Okay. Here we go. There is our bearingless, completely stripped pinion shaft. I think that was enough excitement for one day.